You drop everything when a friend texts at midnight. You stay late at work because a colleague is drowning. You remember everyone's birthdays, carry other people's stress like it's your own luggage, and somehow always find the energy for them. But when it's your turn, when you're the one drowning, you look at your phone, you think about texting someone, and then something happens. Not shyness, not pride, something quieter and stranger, like a hand presses gently on your chest and says, "Not this time," and you put the phone down, and you tell yourself you're fine, and you go make tea, and you carry it alone. And the worst part isn't the loneliness. The worst part is that you genuinely don't understand why you do this, because you're not a cold person. You're literally the opposite. So why does asking for help feel like swallowing glass? Here's the thing, almost nobody tells you. Helping others and struggling to ask for help aren't two separate personality traits. They're the same mechanism, two sides of the exact same wound. And until you see what's actually underneath, you'll keep running yourself into the ground for everyone else, while quietly convincing yourself you don't really need anything. Picture this. It's been a rough week, not dramatic, no crisis, no disaster, just that slow, grinding kind of exhaustion where everything feels slightly too heavy. You wake up already tired, you go through the motions, you smile when you're supposed to smile. And somewhere in the middle of that week, your friend calls. She's stressed about a situation at work, going in circles, clearly needs to talk, and something in you just switches on. You listen, you ask the right questions, you help her see it differently. An hour later, she says, "I feel so much better. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." And you feel something. Not pride exactly, more like relief, like you exhaled for the first time all day. That night you lie in bed. The week is still heavy, you're still exhausted, and there's this small voice, not dramatic, barely a whisper, that says, "I kind of wish someone would ask me how I'm doing." Not in the needy way, just in the human way. But you don't text anyone, because what would you even say? "Hey, I'm just tired?" That sounds pathetic. They have their own problems. You don't want to be a burden. You'll be fine. You always are. And you fall asleep carrying the same weight you woke up with. Here's the truth. You're not just a giver by nature. That's not a personality type. That's a coping strategy that got so deep, it started to feel like identity. At some point, probably early, probably before you had the words for it, you learned something. You learned that your needs created problems. Maybe you asked for something and felt like a burden. Maybe the people around you were overwhelmed and there was simply no room. Maybe love in your house was conditional. It flowed more easily when you were helpful, easy, low maintenance, when you didn't need too much. So you adapted, brilliant, quietly, the way children always do. You learned to need less. You learned to give more. You learned that being needed is the safest way to belong. Because if you're useful, you have a reason to be there. If you're the helper, no one can say you're too much. And it worked. For a long time, it worked. The problem is, you're still running that same program, except now you're an adult, and the cost is different. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when someone offers to help you, and you immediately say, no, I'm fine, don't worry about it. Your brain isn't being polite. Your brain is running a threat assessment, because asking for help isn't neutral. To your nervous system, asking for help means several things at once, and none of them feel safe. First, it means admitting you can't handle it alone. And somewhere in you, handling it alone became the proof that you're okay, that you're not too much, that you deserve to take up space. So admitting you need something doesn't feel like a simple request. It feels like confessing a flaw. Second, it means depending on someone. And depending on someone means they could disappoint you. They could say no. They could help, but make you feel guilty about it. Or they could help badly, and now you've lost control of the situation and you owe them something. Your brain does this math in about half a second and decides, not worth it. Handle it yourself. Third, and this is the one that cuts deepest, it means being seen, really seen. Not the capable, reliable, always fine version of you, the actual version, the tired one, the one who doesn't have it together right now, and that version feels dangerous to show. Because what if, when people see that version, they leave? Or worse, they stay but look at you differently? So your brain makes the only choice it knows how to make. Protect yourself by not needing anything. and it disguises this as strength. Here's the part that messes with your head the most. You genuinely believe you're okay with not asking for help. It doesn't feel like fear. It feels like preference, like you just happen to be someone who figures things out alone, like independence is just who you are. But watch what happens when someone actually pushes through your "I'm fine," when they don't accept the first answer, when they sit down and say, "No, seriously, tell me what's going on." Something shifts, doesn't it? Something in your chest, not quite pain, but close to it, like pressure releasing from a place you forgot was pressurized. That's not the feeling of an independent person who prefers to go it alone. That's the feeling of someone who has been waiting without knowing they were waiting for someone to try a little harder, to make it safe enough. And the tragedy is, most people in your life don't push. They accept your "I'm fine" at face value. Not because they don't care, but because you've trained them to. You've been so consistent, so reliable, so fine for so long that nobody thinks to check twice. You've made yourself easy to miss when you're struggling. You've become too good at hiding it. Now let's talk about the thing this does to your relationships, because this is where the real damage happens, quietly, over time, in ways that are easy to miss until they're not. When you help everyone but receive nothing, you create an imbalance. And imbalances always charge interest. At first it feels noble, selfless. You're the strong one, the reliable one, the one people lean on. But underneath, something starts to accumulate. A low-grade resentment you can't quite justify. You didn't ask for anything. They didn't do anything wrong. But you start to notice, I'm always the one who shows up. I'm always the one who asks how they're doing. I'm always the one carrying this. And because you never asked for help, you also never gave the people who love you the chance to show up for you. You robbed them of it. They never got to be there for you the way you're there for them. So the relationship stays lopsided, not because they're selfish, but because you built a one-way door and called it generosity. And then one day, not with a dramatic fight, not with a clear reason, you start to feel alone inside relationships that are supposed to matter. You're surrounded by people who care about you, and you are completely alone because no one actually knows what you're carrying because you never showed them. There's another cost nobody talks about. What this does to your sense of self. Every time you help someone, there's a quiet transaction happening. Not consciously, but it's there. Some part of you is earning your place, earning the right to belong, earning the feeling that you matter. And that's an exhausting way to exist because it means your worth is always conditional on your usefulness. The moment you can't help, the moment you're too tired, too overwhelmed, too broken, you don't just feel unhelpful, you feel worthless. And that's when asking for help becomes truly impossible. Because in your internal economy, needing help means you have nothing to offer. And if you have nothing to offer, why would anyone want to help you? You see the trap. You help to feel worthy, but needing help makes you feel unworthy. So you can never stop helping. And you can never start receiving. It's a closed loop with no exit built in. So how do you break it? Not by forcing yourself to be more vulnerable, not by suddenly trauma dumping on people who aren't ready. The system didn't build overnight. It won't dissolve overnight either. But there are real entry points, specific places where you can start to teach your nervous system a different story. The first move, practice micro asks, not the big vulnerable conversation. Not yet. Start with something almost embarrassingly small. Ask a friend to pick something up on their way over. Ask a colleague to take one thing off your plate this week. Ask someone to just sit with you while you figure something out. These feel trivial. They're not trivial. Each one is a piece of evidence your brain collects. I asked. The world didn't end. They didn't leave. I'm not too much. You're rewriting the threat assessment one small data point at a time. The second move, kill the "I'm fine" reflex with honesty, not performance. You don't have to break down in front of people, but you can stop immediately redirecting. When someone asks how you're doing, pause, actually check, and answer 1 degree more honestly than usual. Not, "I'm falling apart," just honestly, "It's been a heavy week." That's enough. That's the door. And you'll be surprised how often people walk through it. The third move, let people help badly. This one is crucial. One of the hidden reasons you don't ask is because you're afraid of losing control. of how it gets done, of the outcome, of the dynamic. So even when someone offers, you decline because you can already see them doing it wrong. But here's the thing. Letting someone help imperfectly is more healing than doing it perfectly alone, because it's not about the task. It's about practicing the experience of receiving. The fourth move, notice the resentment and treat it as information. When you feel that quiet bitterness, I'm always the one who shows up, why doesn't anyone ask about me? Don't push it down. Don't label yourself as ungrateful. That resentment is a signal. It's your unmet needs knocking. It's asking, what did you actually need here that you never asked for? Get curious about that, because behind every unexpressed resentment is an unexpressed need, and that need is real, and it's allowed to be real. The fifth move, the hardest one, update the belief that asking makes you a burden. This is the root, and the only way to update a belief is with experience, not logic. You can know intellectually that asking for help isn't weakness and still feel it in your bones as shameful. That's because the belief lives in the body, not the mind. So you need body-level evidence, which means ask, watch what happens, ask again, watch again. Slowly, the feeling starts to shift, not because you convinced yourself, but because you lived through enough moments where it was safe. You're not selfless, you're scared. That's not a criticism. It's the most important distinction you might ever make about yourself. Because selfless is a character trait. Scared is a response. And responses can change. The person who helps everyone and can't ask for help isn't broken. They're just still running a survival strategy from a time when needing things wasn't safe. They learned to disappear their needs so well, they almost convince themselves the needs aren't there, but they are. You have them, you're allowed to have them, and this is the part that'll take the longest to believe. The people who actually love you want to meet them, not because they owe you, because being let in is a gift, and you've been keeping everyone out while calling it strength. The bravest thing you can do isn't help someone else through their worst night. It's send the text that says, hey, I'm actually not okay. Can we talk? That's where it starts.